We were advised in rabbinical school that from time to time we should deliver a sermon so esoteric, so baffling and cryptic that it restores our reputation as deep thinkers. So this is my annual effort. You ever had a dream that felt so realistic that when you awoke, it seemed like it really happened? That the images were so vivid and the sensations so intense that at least for those moments between deep sleep and full consciousness, it felt that you were in the dream, that it was your reality, and that unlike most dreams of most people most of the time, visions quickly forgotten once we're fully awake, that this one penetrated the barrier between the subconscious and the conscious state of mind. And that having dreamt that kind of dream, it stayed with you. Even years later, you can recall and retell every vivid detail with clarity, and that in some way, it changed your life. That was the kind of dream that Jacob dreamt in this week's Torah portion. Fleeing the wrath of his brother Esau, alone in the wild and filled with fear and anxiety, Jacob awakens from deep sleep with sensations that this dream that he had just dreamt was real. He dreamt of a ladder based on the ground with its top in the sky, with the angels of God ascending and descending upon it. God was at the top of the ladder and said to Jacob, "I am the God of Abraham and Isaac. The land that you're lying upon, I will give to you and your descendants. I am with you, Jacob, and will watch over you on your journeys, and I will return you to this land, for I will not abandon you." And Jacob was jolted out of deep sleep from this dream. The Hebrew word is vayikatz, implying that he was not, in that never land between being asleep and fully awake. He was immediately and fully awake and proclaims, "Achen yesh Adonai b'makom hazeh va'anochi lo yadati." Behold, indeed, God was in this place, and I had no idea. Was it real? Did God in fact communicate with Jacob? God communicates often with people in dreams in the Bible. Did God communicate with Jacob and promise him everlasting security? Or was it just a dream? After all, the Torah never actually tells us that God spoke with Jacob. The text only says that Jacob dreamt that God spoke with him. The ancients, like we moderns, understood dreams to be some kind of window into the subconscious, but they also realized that most dreams are mostly nonsense most of the time. Even the ancients were skeptical of someone simply proclaiming that they had a dream and assigning truth or prophecy to that dream. Jacob himself, several chapters later, rebukes his own son, Joseph, who dreams of his family bowing down to him. And Jacob responds, "What is this dream you dreamt? Shall I, your mother, and your brother bow down to you?" Rabbinic tradition cautioned not to rely on dreams. The Talmud asserts that dreams are 1/60th of prophecy, but that means that 59/60ths are what the sages called dvarim betelim, nonsense, nothing of significance. In other words, according to Jewish tradition, there might be a tiny element of truth, of literal truth in our dreams, but they're mostly inconsequential most of the time for most people. So was Jacob's dream real, or was it what Freud termed the disguised fulfillment of repressed wishes? The royal road to access the unconscious where repressed desires and memories reside. It seems that even Jacob is unsure whether this dream was real, kind of real, perhaps real, or nonsense. He responds to the dream of God's protection with a vow, but the oath, true to Jacob's personality and the personality of most people, the oath is conditional. He says, if God will be with me, and if God will watch over me, and if God gives me bread to eat and clothes to wear, and if God restores me to my father's house, then Adonai will be my God, and I shall give to Adonai 1/10 of all my possessions. A pledge we never read that he kept. But sometimes dreams do create reality. They open the door to our imagination. And imagination is one of those things that is so lacking in our world and is so desperately needed. The rational side of our brains, the left hemisphere, is the dominant part of our brains. It controls language. It's oriented towards achievement. We define, organize, and categorize information in the left hemisphere. It's the side of our ego, the side of rationality. It controls judgment. It sets limits. It's in-the-box thinking. But in the right hemisphere, that's where we see visions and pictures and colors. I read a short, fascinating book entitled My Stroke of Insight by Dr. Jill Bolte Taylor. She's a Harvard-trained neuroanatomist who at the age of 37 suffered a massive hemorrhagic stroke on the left side of her brain. In the book, she describes in detail her experiences from the moment of her stroke through the many years of recovery. She could examine the effects of her stroke, as she described, from the inside out, as a scientist observing herself. She described how her stroke incapacitated the left hemisphere of her brain. Her right hemisphere, however, was not damaged. Joy exists in the right hemisphere. Dr. Taylor described how colors became much more vivid and bolder. She could appreciate music as never before. She could even sing on key for the first time in her life. Not that I want a stroke to be able to do that. She felt more compassion, observed more beauty, saw more curves and textures than ever before. Her creativity blossomed. She wrote that she felt now a deep inner peace, an inexplicable but very real feeling. She felt at one with the universe and could appreciate her life's meaning as part of something much bigger than herself and much more awesome. She wrote that when she lost her capacity in the left hemisphere, the right hemisphere became uninhibited. It was freed from the self-restricting, self-defining, rationality-based, judgmental, in-the-box thinking of her left hemisphere. Now, of course, we cannot exist with any independence without our left hemisphere. We would be unable to take care of ourselves, nor would we be able to reason or rationalize or advance scientifically and technologically. But what Dr. Taylor emphasized is that the right hemisphere is an equal part of our makeup as human beings and accesses a reality of the universe that is normally inaccessible to most of us. And that got me thinking. Perhaps some people, the great prophets, the poets, the playwrights, the great artists, the musicians, maybe they have a more developed right hemisphere than most of us. That could explain why some people feel so powerfully and personally the reality of God in their lives. And others could deem these people delusional, psychotic, unhinged, or in pursuit of some God idea that seems to them to be entirely irrational and childish. You heard the story of the Upper West Side Jewish parents who sent their child to the Trinity School? Know that one? The parents were militant and vocal atheists. About a month after the child began school, he casually said to his father, "By the way, Dad, you know what the meaning of the word Trinity is? It means the trio of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit." The father, barely restraining himself, grabs the boy by the shoulders and seethes, "Son, there is only one God, and we don't believe in him." Dr. Taylor concluded that we simply don't engage the skills of our right hemisphere enough. She said that she estimates that 85% of our thoughts are left hemisphere centered, and at most only 15% are centered in our right hemisphere. Not only do we not engage our right hemisphere enough, she argued, but we actually mock it. We say to people, "Stop daydreaming. Solve that equation." Perhaps the great dreamers of our world have stronger right hemisphere capacities than most of us that allow these prophets to see things and to dream things that are hidden from others. Between 1896 and 1898, Theodor Herzl lived at 6 Bergasse Street in Vienna. These were the years when he first dreamed the dream of a Jewish state. "If you will it," he wrote in 1896, "it is no dream." In those very years, Sigmund Freud lived at 19 Bergasse Street. Herzl and Freud were neighbors for 2 to 3 years. The great prophet of Israel, the dreamer, and the Jewish founder of psychoanalysis lived a 3-minute walk, one from the other. They were both prominent, even famous, but apparently and astonishingly never met. What if they would have met? What if Herzl had first gone to Freud before writing his pamphlet that forever changed Jewish history? What if he had told Freud about his dream? The dream to reestablish Jewish sovereignty in the land of Israel after 2,000 years of exile. What if the founder of psychoanalysis what if he told the founder of psychoanalysis that he identified with Jacob's dream? That the God of Israel would return the descendants of Israel to the land of Israel. What would Freud have said? Stop daydreaming and solve that equation? Would he have cautioned Herzl? You're delusional, psychotic, unhinged. Tell me more about your childhood. The Oedipal jealousy you harbored of your father who intruded upon and disrupted your infatuation of your mother. If Martin Luther King would have sought the help of a Freudian to disabuse him of his fantasies and cure him of his dream of a colorblind society, would America have been better off? Don't these dreamers, who others often accuse of delusion, don't they sometimes elevate us, opening horizons we would have never imagined by ourselves? I love this short poem by Samuel Taylor Coleridge. What if you slept? And what if, in your sleep, you dreamed? And what if in your dream, you went to heaven? And there plucked a strange and beautiful flower. And what if, when you awoke, you had that flower in your hand? Ah, what then? Keep that little flower in your hand, the evidence of the truth of your good dreams. Do not dismiss good dreams. They may be 59/60th nonsense, but one small element, one little flower, 1/60th of these dreams may change the world.
אצאנה אל הבוסתן, מור בשמים ולבונה, ורגלך מפתן. לילה יורד לאט, ורוח שושן נושבה, אבא אל השלך שיר בנה, זמר של אהבה. יאי רי 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 רי, לילה יורד לאט, ורוח שושן נושבה, אבא הרש לך שיר בלט, זמר של אהבה. ערב של שושנים, אצאנה אל הבוסתן, מור בשמים ולבונה, לרגלך מפתן. לילה יורד לאט, ורוח שושן נושבה, אבא הרש לך שיר בלט, זמר של אהבה. ידיד נפש, אב הרחמן, ושוך עבדך אל רצונך, ירוץ עבדך כמו Come on.